who were the top 20 players of Modern Warfare 2019? With Black Ops 6 actually being the 6th year of the CDL, I thought it'd be interesting to have a little throwback here and go back and react to Breaking Point's top 20 list from Modern Warfare 2019, from the 2020 inaugural season of the CDL, and sort of look at where they had players ranked, who made the list, and like where are those players now, right? Because this is 5 years ago at this point. So looking back and seeing where are these players at? Are they still in the league? Have they retired? Are they in challengers? Things like that. I definitely think it'd be interesting. But yeah, let's kind of scroll through this and see. So this would be an interesting video to try something a little different. At number 20, they got the King. They got Scump at number 20. I mean, back in 2019, 2020, obviously, Scump was not nearly at the peak of his powers. He was definitely better in like Cold War than he was. Even if just the years after 2019, he was a little bit better. But I think that year, everything being online, we know Scump's mental is definitely chalked with all that stuff. And when Huntsmen were on land, they definitely were better. So Scump at number 20. Obviously, the King retired now. So one player already not in the league. At number 19, we got Priesta. Many newer fans might not know that Priesta is one of the better, more winning players of the CDL era. I believe he has 6 wins in the CDL. Obviously, one of those being a ring. Half of his wins coming with New York Subliners, obviously in MW2. We got a win on the Minnesota Rocker back in that miracle reverse sweep they made against Ultra in Cold War. And then obviously when he was on Atlanta FaZe this season, as you can see, was winning with, Simp, Abizi, and Celium, and Major Maniac also, who I don't know if he's going to be on this list, but, shout out to Major for sure. Priesta is still in the league, though, so on LAG, even though they don't have a win at this point in the season. Number 18, we got Attach back when he was on the Subliners. Man, I feel like Attach has played for so many different teams, so it's pretty, I feel like I barely remember him on the Subliners. Like, I obviously do, but it just feels like it was so long ago. I mean, I guess it was 5 or 6 years ago, as we said, so Attach coming in at number 18. Number 17, we got Slasher. Pretty interesting now, thinking back, because after this point, I mean, obviously MW2 on FaZe, he had a pretty decent season in Vanguard. He obviously got that win with LAG, but I feel like Slasher in the CDL era hasn't really been talked about that much other than, back in the day, CWL days and earlier was when he was really at his peak. But now, so far in Black Ops 6, the Ravens and Slasher have been playing pretty good. So at number 17, Slasher still in the league, oldest player in the league, looking good still. At number 16, we got Wuskin, man. Finally, I mean, I guess is he technically retired? I don't know if he announced a retirement, but he doesn't compete anymore as far as I know. But Wuskin, man, I mean, that's a throwback. I feel like that's a name you don't hear too often in the COD scene anymore. This is the first player that's not in the league on the list that we don't really hear about, because obviously the only other one will be Scump, and we still hear plenty about the King Scump. So Wuskin, man, that's definitely a throwback, right? One of the best snipers in the league, as you can see by their tweet right here, which I accidentally just clicked on. But man, that is a throwback to the London Royal Ravens. Number 15, we got Clay, obviously getting his ring this season. It was a pretty good season for Clay. I mean, all things considered, right? Coming off of that E United year where he won champs, and then forming this team, picking up, rookies like Illy and Shotzi, bringing in a young guy like Hook, who's finally able to start competing again, and obviously teaming with Crim6. Clay making number 15 in the top 20. For sure not going to be the last Dallas Empire player we see, but Clay also another player retired on this list, which is super sad to see, but he is coaching the Vegas Falcons, so still involved in CDL 6 years later. Number 14, just like that, Illy, aka Yoda King. As we all know, Illy changed his name or rebranded to Yoda King here on Twitter and Twitch and everything, it seems. We'll see if he goes back to Illy. I feel like he probably will, but what a name. Illy Yoda King. I mean, SND Mastermind, top prospect, world champ. Was a great year for Illy back in 2019, his rookie season. Then we go to number 13, and we got Cammy. I feel like people forget Cammy was also pretty good in 2019. Obviously, his Cold War year was like the big one. He was like a top 3 player in Cold War. Top 3, top 5, somewhere in that range, most people would argue. Even in MW 2019, he was still really good, man. He was still really, really good. The Toronto Ultra were still a competitive team. Shout out to them for being competitive year in, year out. He has Illy's, look at this. He has Illy's, what do you call that, social handles on the graphic. So all these years later, the graphic is still not correct. But hey, shout out to Cammy. He's been pretty decent in BO6 so far, but he's still playing in the league. At number 12, we got Mac Melts over here. I mean, you could see he is in the stat right here. He went from a 14% win rate without him to a 50% win rate with him when the Subliners picked him up. Mac obviously took a break last season. Now in BO6, he's back on Cloud 9. probably been their best player. So for sure, still in the league, still have an impact. Another player on the list where most of them so far have still been in the league. A couple retirements, Illy obviously in challengers, but so far so good. Number 11, we got Pharaoh, man. RIP Pharaoh for real. This is a guy that would have been great if he was still playing nowadays. It's definitely, that's a little bit sad, man. I kind of forgot how good he was back in 2019. So make sure to drop an F3 in the comments for sure. But Pharaoh, a guy, I mean, on the Mutineers, won a few events. Wish he was still competing, man, for real. And number 10, we got Arcides when he was on his time with the Huntsman. Yeah, I mean, listen, Arcides was quality in 2019, 2020 during this game for sure. He was able to flex, as you could see. I mean, talking about using an MP5, using an M4, using a sniper. Arcides, I'm sure many Optic fans, Huntsman's fans, as obviously they were back then, definitely remember the good things he did on this team. And he is still competing in challengers, so again, he's still playing. Number 9, we got Caesar Skies Bueno investing in his game. I don't know if people remember, it's maybe some newer fans also who didn't watch back in 2019. Skies was like top class. I mean, obviously he's number 9 on this list, but he was really, really good in 2019. When he was on the Mutineers, he was like a slaying force on the map. A lot of newer fans and even just people who maybe kind of forgot a few years ago, the more recent years, Skies has been more of your slower traditional main AR, like holding spawn, sitting in the hill. But this guy has slaying prowess. Maybe he doesn't have it anymore. I don't know. Who knows? I would love to see Skies go back to his slaying ways because he was pretty elite when it came to getting kills. Obviously, won 3 home series with the Mutineers, an MVP nomination. Definitely, I mean, still in the league. Same thing with Priesta on LAG this year. Has not gotten a win, but he is still there. Then we move up to number 8, and another Mutineers player from this year. It is Awakening. A player who recent years, this year and last year, has not been that good in the CDL, but 2019 was his rookie year. He came in, and bro, people were accusing him of cheating. Obviously, this year, with a lot of it being online, there was a lot of accusations, but like even Crimsix, most notably, was on Awakening's ass, saying he was cheating. This guy was slamming in 2019, if you remember. He was absolutely slamming. I mean, you can see, they say here in the tweet, the future is bright for Awakening. And he proceeded to have good years. He hasn't won since 2019. Other than the last 2 seasons, or this year and last year, he was putting up like 1.15, 1.2 every series. So would love to see him get back to that. Then we go to number 7, and we got, oh my God, Seattle Surge Octane, man. This feels like it was just a blast from the past, because obviously he ends up getting on LAT, winning champs, winning events, then retiring at kind of like one of the peaks of his abilities, right? I mean, he retired after an amazing MW2 year where he was one of the best players. And yeah, the human turret, man, back when he was stuck on the Surge, I mean, roster change after roster change, slacked, Karma, Enable, like everybody dipping from this team or being dropped. What a bad season it was for the Seattle Surge, but what a good season it was for Octane. Number 6, man, we got HAVOK, a player who is obviously in the news, if you want to call it the news, currently in Black Ops 6, of course, coming in back to Optic for Pred, HAVOK the Nuke. People want him dropped on Optic. People want him to stay. It looks like he is staying, as it seems like Shotzi said on his stream. But HAVOK coming back, finally being able to compete again, right? I mean, he competed back in AW before there was the 18-year-old limit where you had to be 18 to play. And then he comes back this year, teaming up with Shotzi, teaming up with Illy, right? Some other young guys. Obviously, the vets of Clay and Crim getting the ring. Of course, this season being online, so people hold that against a lot of the Empire players. But HAVOK, man, I mean, in 2019, he was frying. All right, now we get into our top 5, man. And I'm trying to think, like, who the top 5 is going to be. Obviously, Shotzi is going to be in there. Simp is going to be in there. Who else is going to be in the top 5? I think Envoy's probably top 5, right? Who am I missing? Celium and Abizi? Is it those 5? Well, I guess we're going to see. At number 5 is Celium. I mean, listen, people have asked me, like, who do you think is, like, the best player of the CDL era? I don't know anymore if I would say Celium after last season, but I feel like you got to say Celium's the most consistent player of the CDL. He's been top 5 every year, I'd say, except for MW3 last year, and even at that, he was on the fringe of top 5. Somewhere between 5 and 10, I'm guessing 99% of fans that watched last season would had him. Cell is so consistent. And then even all the way back in 2019, 2020 on Atlanta FaZe, right? Obviously getting wins. And I mean, you know, number 5 on the list, he can do it too. FaZe up. This is when that whole thing with the meme with Formal and all that, I think, came out. Cell coming in at number 5. Number 4, we got Dylan Envoy, a player who I think a lot of people don't remember was this good back in 2019. I mean, even the year before, right, before the CDL in BO4, he was also one of the best players. He was really, really good. He was an MVP candidate, as you can see in the tweet down there, for the Huntsman this year. He was their best player, obviously. I mean, he's number 4 on the list. I think most people know there's not going to be anyone higher from his team at this point. Envoy was very, very good at Modern Warfare 2019. Of course, notably his 1v1 clutch versus Tej when the OG LA team at Champs. People say he saved OPTIC for Hex, and he's the reason Hex has been able to buy it back, because if they would have lost OGLA, maybe the OGLA wouldn't have sold and things like that. So Dylan Envoy, potentially the OPTIC savior, turned Dark Prince, getting a ring with LAT since then. Obviously still in the league now, back on LAT, so shout out to that. Love my guy. But now let's get into our top 3. And at number 3, we got Tyler Abizi. I mean, not really a surprise. Abizi's another player who just is always at the top of rankings for the most part. He's always top 10 at the very least, it seems. Still playing, just won MVP of CDL Minor 1 in 2025. So all these years later, still him. I mean, who would have thought that, like, at this point, I mean, I guess we probably would have known because in BO4 he won the ring, and then in this year he was obviously top 3, but at this point, one of the best subs of all time, right? He's a top 8-ish player for probably most people, probably top 10 in everyone's all-time rankings at this point. But now we get into our top 2, and if I remember properly, there was a bit of drama about the top 2 in Breaking Point's list. Because at number 2, they did have Shotzzy, and at number 1, they had Simp. We'll first talk about Shotzzy. I think most fans, especially now thinking back, remember Shotzzy as the number 1 player, especially because he did win the MVP. Like, Shotzzy was the Rookie of the Year and the MVP in the same season in 2019 for the Empire and won the ring. But Breaking Point gave number 1 to Simp. And I remember this being a bit of a spicy thing back in the day, like I said. I also remember, I'm pretty sure they do like a vote every year on the competitive COD Reddit with who's like the top 20 or the top players every year. I'm pretty sure the Reddit also had Simp number 1. So I don't think this was a completely like crazy take out of Breaking Point, and they obviously had their reasons and their stats behind it, but it definitely was a bit of a hot take, and looking back, I think most people probably remember Shotzzy as the best player. But yeah, Simp was number 1 in this year, which was probably the hottest take, but pretty interesting to see, right? If you look at the top 5, I mean, Simp, number 1, was the MVP last season in Modern Warfare 3. Shotzzy, number 2, won multiple MVPs in Modern Warfare 3 last season as well. Abizi, number 3, I mean, just won an MVP of the minor tournament in this year. Envoy, number 4, hasn't won really any MVPs, but obviously also got a ring, just like all of these guys after this year. Celium, number 5, he won an MVP at EWC last year. So the top guys still playing like top guys now in 2025. So yeah, man, that is the list, man. Those are the top 20 players of Modern Warfare 2019. You guys think I should go back and look at any other lists? If there's any lists like this for even earlier in the day, like earlier CWL, MLG days, that I'm going to try and find those, maybe do a video for those. Let me know if there's any years or lists you think I should react to. But I think it's kind of cool to get a little blast from the past and sort of remember who was the best and think about where they're at now. So if you enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like, sub to the channel for more CDL content. Hopefully I'll see you in the next one.